Hey guys, this is Ray with DRP Motorsports and welcome back to the shop. And today we are about to start a new chapter with our 2019 Mustang GT shop car. If you've been following along, you know this car currently sits with a VMP Odin supercharger on it, on top of a Ford Racing Illuminator crate engine. It's a 9.5 to 1 compression engine. And we've been very pleased with how this supercharger has performed in this car. It's made over 900 wheel horsepower, probably around 1,000 at the crank with the current setup. Runs very well, drives OEM like stock, but it's got a ton of power and torque, obviously. But super great product, super great kit. Can't say enough good things about this VMP kit. Well satisfied, and we're proud to be able to sell them. But moving along, this is a shop car. And it is a test bed for products, and it's time to move on to the next chapter, guys. And what are we going to do next? Well, it sits in these boxes right here, and if you can see that, Hellion power systems. If you ever heard of the name Hellion, you know that goes along with turbo kits for modern day performance cars, and that's what we're going to do with this car. We're going with a sleeper twin turbo setup on this engine, and we're pretty excited to get it installed and see what it's going to do. I think it's going to perform very, very well, guys. And the reason I say that is given that this is a low compression engine, without getting into too many details, it should work really well to spool a turbo, and the power band that the turbos will offer will really work well with this combination. Now, just to give you a few key differences, in case you didn't know, between a positive displacement supercharger setup versus a turbo. The positive displacement supercharger is instant power, instant torque as soon as you crack the throttle. The turbo setup, you know, might have just a little bit of lag, but I mean with the proper turbo size, I mean lag would be minimum, if any. But one of the key differences is the supercharger is belt driven off the crankshaft of the engine. So, make a long story short, it basically takes power to spin that supercharger over. So, you know, with this setup, we're making a little over 20 pounds of boost, and this car is making over 900 wheel horsepower. Well, in that process, I don't know the exact figures, but I would just guess and say it might chew up 200 horsepower that this engine makes just to spin that supercharger over with this pulley combination that we've got. You know, the faster you spin it, the more resistance you're going to have. And the more power it's going to take from the engine to turn that supercharger. Now, with a turbocharger setup, the turbochargers, you'll see in just a few minutes when I unbox everything, is driven off exhaust energy. So you're taking energy that otherwise would just be sent out the tailpipe to do no other good to spin the turbochargers, which in turn spins the compressor units of the turbochargers, which forces air into the engine. So basically, you're kind of like getting free boost. You know, you do have a back pressure threshold that where back pressure can rob you power with a turbocharger setup, but ultimately, you know, you're not expending crankshaft power to drive turbochargers. So, say for example, with this setup, 20 pounds of boost is yielding somewhere around 1,000 crank horsepower. Well, with the turbocharger setup, everything working as it should, properly sized, you know, it would take way less boost to make that same 1,000 horsepower. And we're pretty excited to be able to get this on the car and see what it'll do once again. We are a dealer for Hellion Turbo Systems, and that's why we're putting their kit on, because we're not going to sell anything, guys, that we wouldn't put on our own car ourselves. So let's get everything unboxed and I'll show it to you. All right, guys, we got everything out of the box. It's pretty much all there sitting on that cart. There is a lot of parts to a twin turbo system, and if there's any negative downside of running a turbocharged system versus a supercharged system, is just the complexity of everything. You see, there's a lot of parts there. With a supercharger, you know, pretty much everything just bolts in, sits on top of the engine, and that's pretty much it, other than your heat exchanger and stuff that mounts in front of the radiator. But with a turbo system, you've got your intercooler right here, which mounts in front of the radiator to cool the boost down. But you also got all your exhaust plumbing, all your oil plumbing, all your charge air plumbing, blow-off valves, boost controller. There's a lot of stuff here, and it makes the install quite a bit more complex, and it's also quite oftentimes more expensive to purchase a turbocharger kit, but the rewards are there for your efforts. Just briefly, got all the silicone couplers, got the intercooler. We opted with their 4-in-1 shorty headers. Since this car is already equipped with long tube headers, we're going to have to pull those off and install these on there. So since we're going to be doing that, we just went ahead and opted to go with the 4-in-1 headers that Hellion offers, but you can use the factory style headers if you wish. Got all the exhaust piping, the charge air piping, air filters, blow-off valves, wastegates. It's all there. Here are the turbos. We opted to go with the based upon Hellion's recommendation. There's 62 ball bearing units, so these should perform very well with our setup and supply more than enough air for over 1,000 wheel horsepower. So that's where we're heading. I think the only thing that we're missing right at the moment is the electronic boost controller. You don't have to have an electronic boost controller. You can regulate your max boost by changing your springs and your wastegates, but we're going to use an electronic boost controller. That way we can dial in the boost that we want from the electronic control module inside the car and not have to go in there and physically change the springs when we want to change the boost pressure. So there we are, guys. Got a lot of parts, got a lot of work ahead of us, but we're excited to get started on this, and we'll bring you more videos along the way as we put parts on and get it going. So as always, thanks again for following along. God bless you guys. We'll see you again soon.